Hi everyone, this is Mindy and welcome to my channel. Today's video is part of a video hop with Altenew celebrating their July 2023 Marvelous Monthly Series. Be sure to leave comments along the way to be entered into the giveaway, and I will leave a link down below to the next person in the hop. Now, for today's card, I am going to be doing a split design. And this works really well when you have a large floral image like I'm going to be using with the Build a Garden Sweet Lilies stamp set. Here's a quick look at the Build a Garden set. Now, I have the stamp set. There is also a coordinating stencil and die. And I love using the stencils with the Build a Garden. There are also some dies to cut out sentiments. And I'm going to be starting my card project using a large sheet of white cardstock that is cut to about 6 by 8.5. And I lined up my large floral image. I'm stamping this first in Limestone ink, which is a light gray ink from Altenew. If you've watched my videos before, you know that I love doing this first before I do any ink blending, because then I don't risk smearing any ink if I were to have stamped in black right away. So this is just kind of my go-to technique. Now, to do my ink blending with the stencils, I am going to be bringing in my tonic magnetic surface, and I'm just going to tape my cardstock down at the top and the bottom using some Post-it tape, and then I'm lining up the first layer of the stencil. I'm using a bunch of Post-it notes, so thank goodness that these are super cheap, and I'm masking off the areas around where I'm going to be ink blending because I don't want to risk getting ink over the edge of that stencil. Now, I wanted my card to have some nice bright pink flowers on it, so I started with rubellite and a small flat blending brush, and I'm adding this rubellite just kind of lightly over the areas. Then I'm going to take this smaller blending tool and come in with a raspberry. Now, I haven't moved my stencil yet. I still am just using that first stencil, and I'm just adding that darker pink here and there to add some contrast so I have a light layer and a dark layer. Then I can go ahead and remove that stencil. It doesn't look like much now, but as I add more colors and more layers to the stencil, it's going to come together nicely. Now I'm bringing in, now this is still that first stencil. I love how Altenew kind of tries to combine things on one stencil. So this is the part of the flower that's up towards the top, and I decided to come in with some different shades of yellow. So I started out with a nice light layer of yellow. Then I'm coming in with that smaller detail blending tool, adding a little bit darker shade to once again have that contrast. I'm going to shift up the stencil to another area on that first layer of the stencil and just repeat those same colors because I'm still working on that top flower. I am finally moving on to the second layer of the stencil, and this is going to go back to that main floral image in the center of our card. Now, once again, I'm using those same colors and that same technique. So I started in with rubellite, just doing a light layer over it, and then coming in with a raspberry and adding some of that dark color, just kind of down towards one area or one side of each of those flower petals, just to kind of show that there's a difference there. I'll remove this layer, bring in the next layer of the stencil, which is still on that same second stencil, if that makes sense. And I'm working on some more of those yellow flowers. So it's just really handy when Altenew does this, where they combine multiple flowers on one stencil. It helps kind of lessen the amount of stencils so you don't have this huge giant pack of stencils. I love when they're able to do that. My flowers are all colored in, and now I'm going to work on the leaves, and I'm going for kind of a dramatic color combination. I'm starting off with Alpine Aster. Now, this is kind of a light shade of blue that I'm just going to add as my base layer. And then I'm going to come in with a darker shade of blue, and this is Crystal Violet. It is really, really intense. So I tap off quite a bit, and I'm trying to be a little bit careful when I'm adding that on because I don't want to lose that light base layer. I still wanted to have kind of those highlight areas to my leaves. I have one more stencil to finish off some of the leaves. So I'm going to come in with those two shades of blue once again and just blend those in. Now, there are times I'll just pick up some of that excess ink that I had tapped off because it is that intense. I was just really excited to try this color combination. I'm not sure if I saw it somewhere or if it's just something that popped in my head, but I love how bright and bold that is. Now I'm bringing this back in to my Misty stamping tool because I left the stamp set in that same position. I never moved it. And I'm going to ink it up in the jet black ink and stamp that down. So it's going to stamp in the exact same spot. You could leave it with that limestone ink and have kind of a no line coloring look, but I really love coming back in and adding that nice black detail. So now I'm going to come with the coordinating die. I'm adding Post-it tape to multiple places since this is such a large die, and die cut that out. I have two pieces of cardstock here. Now I think these are about 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and I just butted them up right next to each other. And I'm taking my large floral and I'm trying to figure out about how much of each flower I want on each card panel. Then I'm just going to kind of hold it in place, flip only one of them over, and draw a pencil line. So then what I can do is take that over to my paper trimmer and trim that along the pencil line. So I have those really nice flat edges that I can line up with each side of the card. So this is that split design where I took that one image and I have enough floral on each side to cover a good part of that cardstock. As I have it figured out where I want my floral images to be, I'm going to come in with buttercream ink and just add a little bit of a glow behind the flowers. This is going to tie in nicely with the yellow flower that I have on the other card project. This one didn't have any yellow, so I wanted to kind of brighten that up a little bit since I knew with taking the picture they were going to be right next to each other. I thought it was just a really great pairing and would look really good together. So I'm just finishing it off, making sure that I have enough of that yellow kind of peeking over the edge of the flowers. Then I'll grab my other panel, kind of figure out exactly where my flowers are going to be. And this time I'm starting at the bottom and I'm going to work that glow from the buttercream ink. I'm going to work it up towards the top of the cardstock and have it fade off as it gets towards the top. I thought about coming in from the side, but it just looked a little funny when I tried it one time, so I decided going from the bottom would look better. I have these two large sentiment stamp sets that I'm going to stamp in the jet black ink. I really like these. They're nice and bold, and this stamp set really has some amazing and unique sentiments. So I knew that I could use one of each on my card fronts. So I have the word hugs and I have the word sending. And I'm just so happy when I see coordinating dies to go with these larger sentiments. I'm going to add a smaller sentiment underneath those, and I brought in my stamp wheel, and I have that sticky silicone mat or that sticky mat underneath, so it's going to hold my cardstock in place there, and I can kind of move my floral image around so that I can squeeze in that sentiment because it is going to be a little bit of a tight fit. So I picked that up with the plate of the stamp wheel, inked that up with the jet black ink, and then I'm going to stamp that down on the front of my card. These are kind of delicate letters, so I don't want to push too hard and risk squishing them or distorting my letters. So then I can just peel up my cardstock, kind of move that off on the side, and I'm going to do the same thing with my other panel. So I do like how that mat kind of holds my cardstock in place, and then I can move my sentiment around and my flower around until I find the perfect position for my sentiment, and then just make sure to move everything out of the way before I actually stamp. Now, once again, I just flip the plate so I can go ahead and ink that up with the black ink. Flip the plate again and just make sure I'm applying even pressure, but just not pushing real hard. Then after I have that stamped and I'm happy with the stamping results, I can remove the cardstock, which will peel up nicely from that sticky mat. And I'm going to start working on assembling my card. Normally, I would add dimension behind the flowers, but since I'm going to have that larger sentiment over the top, I'm just going to take a tape runner, add that to the back of my floral image, and then figure out where I need this to go. Because remember, I said that was kind of a tight fit for my sentiments. So if I need to trim any excess hanging off, I can do that with my scissors. This one especially I needed to be very mindful of because I have a lot of the floral image on this. I almost messed up, but I was able to quickly peel that up, kind of shift my flowers over so it's hugging right next to the sentiment. And then I do have a little bit larger piece to trim off when I flip that over, but thankfully I have enough of the image on the front that you don't even notice. I am taking 2 card bases and I'm scoring them at 4 1/4, and then I'm going to reinforce the fold with my bone folder. So this way I have 2 A2 side folding card bases ready to go. I'm taking some of the satin masking tape and I'm just rolling that up and placing that on the inside of my card so it's going to hold my card base shut while I add tape runner to the back of one of my panels and attach that to the front of the card. So I just want to make sure that my border is nice and even going around there. And I'll repeat the same thing here on my second card, just adding the tape runner and then attaching that to the card front. I have the word hugs that I'm adding some liquid glue to, and then I'm going to place that over the top of my sentiment. Now, the word hugs and the word sending, I did die cut those out a couple times and layer those pieces together to add a little bit of dimension. I did do that off screen, but it is really easy to do, and it's something I do actually quite often to just help add dimension without using foam squares or foam tape. Now I'm going to finish these off by just placing down some of these ice sparkle type of embellishments. I thought they would just add a nice touch to the front of the card, and I'm using those with a pick and stick tool and some liquid glue to attach those. Now I really love how these colors turned out. That was kind of an experiment for me. And I also love how I was able to take that one stamp image and turn it into 2 different cards. So I will have all of the supplies listed down below in the video description, along with a link to the next person in the video hop. And like I said before, be sure to leave a comment down below and also on the Altenew channel, YouTube channel, to be entered into the giveaway. And I will have more information about that on my blog as well. I hope you enjoyed today's card project, and I will see you again soon.